Mr. Leary, all right. Good evening, everyone. It's a little after 6, so we would like to proceed, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a continuation of the school committee interviews. This is the third night, and we have 2 more interviews to conduct tonight, one at 6 o'clock and then the next one at 7:15. So if we could just all please rise and begin the meeting by saluting the flag and then a roll call. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please kindly call a roll?
Mr. Conway?
Here.
Mayor Elliott?
Here.
Mr. Gendron?
Here.
Mr. Leary?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Here.
Ms. Scott?
Here.
7 present.
7 present. We are live. We have no challenges this evening with the Comcast. It wasn't Jeffrey. So with that, anything from members before Michael brings in the candidate? We good to go? Okay, thank you. Mr. Gilbert? Good evening. Welcome to Lowell. You have been here, and welcome to City Hall. If you just please have a seat, and we have some water and pen and paper. Nice to meet you as well. Thank you. So with that, I will turn the floor over to you, Mr. Gilbert. You can do introductions. I'll grab a seat in the well, and we'll proceed. And the first person who will be starting the line of questioning tonight will be Mr. Leary, and then the next candidate will be Ms. Martin. Sorry, ladies.
Mr. Leary.
Kreiner Cash, former superintendent in Memphis, Tennessee, and Martha's Vineyard.
Good evening, everyone.
If I could, just by way of process, we would invite you to begin with an opening statement, and then we will begin alphabetically. We're kind of rotating. We'll be beginning this evening with Mr. Leary with the first line of questioning. There's a 10-minute question and answer period, and we have our timekeeper who is going to try to keep us as close to 10 minutes as we can, and then at the conclusion, we would offer you an opportunity for a closing statement. Okay?
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here. This has been a thrilling day for me, and in my opening statement, I'm just going to make 3 points. The first is I want to commend you for inviting an impressive array of finalist candidates to be part of your search. This is very important. As you know, it's the most important work that you will do for your community is to select your next educational leader at this time. So thank you for the process that you've been engaged in. And I want to say a special thank you to Andre from the high school, who I thought was terrific in the screening committee process. The second thing I want to mention is that you have the ingredients to go to best in class quickly. It won't take a long time, but the leadership decision that you make next is going to be absolutely critical in that regard. And what I saw today out in the 4 schools that I visited, if there are any sampling at all of what is representative of the rest of your district, you have some of the most dedicated teachers who love their students. Not just care about their students, they love their students. And I saw that in every case in the 4 schools that I visited. You have terrific principals, highly effective on every measure of effectiveness that I could ever think about. And I know a lot about that in each of the schools that I visited. And then your support staff and your central office staff who I met didn't get to feel or meet in terms of individually, but I'm looking forward, or would look forward to getting deeper into that, because that's the work that has to happen and get better aligned to what is going on so spectacularly out in your schools. The last thing that I would say in my opening remarks is there are 5 points about me that I want to tell you about. You have my material, so I'm not going to talk about background, resume, and all of that. I want to say some qualities and traits about me that I think match well with what your current needs are. The first is, and above all, is that I am about building and developing capacity in people. Teamwork makes the dream work, and I'm excellent at that. First rate, with all kind of staff at all levels of skill and performance levels. I will bring out the best in what we have in our staff. The second thing is that I am an extraordinary analyst when it comes to data. I see data and things in data that most people don't see. And I look for fault lines. And in a district, every district has them, but until you address effectively what your fault lines are, you can't move a district forward. So that's a skill set. A third thing is fiscal prudency. I was raised by a German mother, and she didn't throw chewing gum on the street. So we save and we spend smart in my personal life and in my professional life, wherever I've been. Left school districts in extraordinarily good fiscal condition. Fourth, I am a coalesce and coalition builder. You don't have to agree with everyone, but you got to get out on the corners and you got to talk to all of the constituents and stakeholders. And you got to find out what they want, what their interests are. And then you find the common ground. You find the common place that we can work together on. And that takes a lot of work. You can't be fearful about that. And last but not least, at this point, I want to make it clear that you have and would have an educational ambassador of the utmost integrity, honesty, transparency, and proven expertise and leadership. And that's what you need now. You need an experienced, proven, knowledgeable, smart, fearless educational ambassador to deal with all of the constituencies that need to support your children going forward. These are tough times we live in. And that leader needs to navigate and be able to navigate all of those complex political environments. That's what you would have in me. So that's an opening statement, and then I'm going to be equally bulleted when you ask me the questions. If you ask me yes/no questions, I'll answer you yes/no. But my experience is that these are complex issues, but I will promise you to be clear and concise because I want you to ask as many as you can. So thank you so much for your time tonight. Glad to be here.
Great. Well, Dr. Cash, thank you very much for being here today, and thank you for taking the time to tour our school district. The question I've asked is really regarding hiring of the staff that you will use to implement your vision of the school district. Everybody can have a fantastic vision in terms of where they want to go, but they need the right staff to help implement that within a district of our size. So what do you look for in terms of principals when you're hiring them? What type of skill sets are you looking for?
Well, you have some terrific principals that I met today, and they are the qualities that I saw in them just today, in just an hour or so that I was with them, are not unlike the qualities that I look for. So, for example, each one of these principals was a great instructional leader. He or she was in her classrooms all the time. Felt comfortable to be in the classroom frequently, asking the students what are they learning and what do they expect to learn out of the lesson before them. These are principals who knew their staff, had hired their staff in most cases, and knew what they wanted and what they needed to serve the population of students that they had. So instructional leadership, good hiring capability themselves as principals. Data analysts, but they like it, they love it, and want to share it and work with the data of their students on a regular basis with their team around we can call them a lot of things, professional learning communities, data chats, weekly data meetings, what have you, but it's up around the building, and they're always looking to areas to improve. These are strengths, these are weaknesses. That's a third quality I look for. And fourth, what do your customers say about you? What do the students, how do they react to you? How do parents feel about your work? And what does the community at large think about you? And then not last, are you able to gather and be innovative and creative about additional resources, getting additional resources into your school, whether they're human resources or supplies and things that your students need outside of the school budget. Those are 5 things. I'm rigorous in my review of those kinds of character qualities, and think you're off to a good start, and would review what you had first before we start looking out.
Well, just in terms of, so if you're hired here as a superintendent, you'll have, most of the schools have principals.
Right.
And the central administration staff, most of those positions are filled. Mm-hmm. How would you go about evaluating a staff that you didn't hire? What processes would you look at in terms of your first, say, 100 days of being the superintendent?
Well, I'm going to pour over their achievement data. I'm going to pour over trends in that achievement data, both in terms of the achievement level and then the work of the subgroups to see how that's going. We have a nettlesome continual problem here in Lowell around subgroups, meeting targets. It's been long-standing. And so I want to know where the successful practices are in the district now to move students and what they're doing with that. Heard some of that today, and I'm looking for that because I know how to move the needle right down to the level of the individual students. So I'm going to be looking at individual student data in these schools around these principals over the last 4 years, okay? I'm going to meet and talk with them about their vision for the school. Where do you want to go? Here's where you are. Here's where you've been. Where do you want to go with this school? What do you need? How can I be most helpful to you? And I'm going to listen carefully for a plan that's been thought through and thought out. And then I'm going to look for that rapport and that relationship with their staff, his or her staff, and his or her main constituents. So those will be some of the things, and there'll be individual meetings with those principals with a file here and a visit out to the school as well. That's the way I'll start it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, given your successful career, when you look back at it, what are areas where you've had failures? And what have you learned from them, and what have you done after having a failure? How do you address it from your experience? What have you done to change a failure into success, or what have you learned for it if you'd face something now in the future?
It's a great question. And I think that what I do, I tend to put a lot of things in play rather quickly once I study it and understand it, because I want students to have a lot of options and opportunities, and I want to move the needle quickly. So sometimes I have not done the groundwork that's necessary for a big innovation to work. I wouldn't call it a failure, but it's a failure in that it halts the work for a moment. So what I'm good at, though, is regrouping and restarting, fresh starting with a better communication plan, for example, and a better reach out to all of the constituencies who will be affected by that initiative. Whether it's a pre-K through 3 continuum, for example, whether it's the new teacher effectiveness evaluation tool, for example, you have to make sure that your rollout and your launches are really, really well communicated and prepared for out. It's not a consistent failure, but 1 or 2 times when I've been anxious to get movement around a difficult population, I should have done a better job with that. Making sure that you touch base with every possible constituency. Sometimes I get so busy in the work. A lesson learned, Mr. Leary, is not a failure, but it's a lesson learned, is that you have to spend the time with everybody that has a stake in the education of that community. And so doing that well, but strategically. Those are two things that I've learned.
What did you, in dealing with, like, say, the managing board, the school committee, what do you feel is important with the relationship before, I guess, the superintendent and the school committee? What do you look for, and what do you expect to achieve with working with, I guess, your bosses, for lack of better terminology?
Well, it's each one reach one. I see that meeting for lunch, meeting for coffee, getting to know in the office, coming out to wherever you want to meet and talk, to get to know people and each other on a you know, what is your background? What are your interests? You know, what is your favorite book that you read? What did you like music? Were you a piano recitalist when you were little, for example? Like I was, so you learn all those things in that kind of conversation. And then after that, you start to build trust because you can feel that person. What you see with me is what you get. You know, there is no agendas with me. You know, what you see is what you get. And I'm straightforward, I'm fun, I have a good sense of humor, but I'm also very serious and very intent around the work. So the relationship is continually building, continually nurturing that relationship. I don't play favorites. I think everybody's important. You have a critical public role to play, and it's very valuable for us as educators. So we need to hear from each of you what you want and what you want to see happen. But you're my boss, and let me be clear, you're my boss as a whole committee. Individually, not so much. But I'm respectful of what you want, what you want to say, and how we want to communicate. So always civil, always straightforward, always honest, call anytime, open communication, build that trust, build that relationship, and then go to work on behalf of kids together.
Okay. Just last question. You're evaluating a principal or a teacher, a direct employee, and they're not performing effectively. How do you go about changing that behavior or working with that person to help them be successful?
Those are deep conversations. Those are courageous conversations. I'm skillful at that, and so I go to see and let you say what it is that you need to do or what you feel your areas of improvement are. This issue of not effective takes a minute. It takes a minute here. And especially the different levels. And so with me, every meeting that I have, which is usually about once a week with the executive team, for example, they're hearing from me what the expectations are, what I want to see, what the value add metrics are for that role, and they're learning what my expectations are. My expectations are very high, and I have experience in performance management, for example. So I would look to see what you're using currently, and from what I can see, not much, you know, so I would be developing a performance management structure and system for our executive administrators, and then, of course, working with the new state tool with the principals and helping them to improve first, and then to exit by law and what the state laws say you can do within that evaluation structure. But always well prepared, well documented. It's not personal, it's business. And then trying to build and grow a person first rather than exit automatically first. Growth first, and then take the hard step if have to, and have done it many times.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cash. My first question would be kind of if you could share with us the overarching learning theories, including any recent research or prevailing pedagogy that inform your educational approach, kind of on that macro level.
So that's an excellent question. There'd be several elements to that. The philosophical element that's been the most consistent for me is every thing I do for systems in the whole district around children focuses on the whole child, the whole child. I believe you have to look at a child's health, a child's family context, what is going on in his or her life. Does she need eyeglasses? Can she hear? All of the things that affect early learning and on into adolescent learning. The strategies to improve learning for those children, focus on the whole child. And you'll see that consistently in the array of work I've done throughout my career. The next thing that I've seen a gap in many districts, and you have it here, is that the curriculum and instruction, the theory of education is around alignment, what I call aligned instruction. And it just often isn't aligned from the state house to the classroom, you know, from the district level down through the teachers and into the classroom. Every instructional approach that you think is viable for students, it needs to have a plan with that, and it needs to have professional development that goes with that, and it needs to have had input from the teachers and the people who are being affected by that theory of action, so that it is tailored to the context that you're working in. Now, there are hybrids depending on, so very high-performing schools with really, really great parental support, and all their parents are professors or mayors or school committee members. You allow more autonomy, a little more empowerment around the instructional content and how fast children will go. But the more support children need and the higher they have to climb to get to the highest academic levels, you need aligned instruction to be the theory, the guiding theory of education. And you need that here.
You know, moving into a superintendency here in Lowell, what would be the kind of district culture that you'd want to lead and create from your, you know, from work with the school committee, work with the community at large, work with staff at every level? What kind of culture would you want to be responsible for crafting and supporting over the next few years?
Well, excellent question again. I bring no preconceived notion that have program will travel. You know, I don't believe in imports and bringing this work here, so bring it here. No, you get on the ground and feel the people, feel the children, feel the communities, and there's some really nice culture going on in your best schools. And so I would want to emulate that. What does that mean? Where staff feel good about coming to work. They're excited to come to work. They have a drive, because I've given them, for example, 5 drivers that if they move on those metrics, this whole system will benefit from their work. And then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and you knit it together. You see, I see myself as a knitter, as a stitcher. You've got to get a patchwork quilt and put it together here. You've got some good pieces, but they're somewhat like that, you see. And so the culture is about respect. It's about appreciation for professionals, you know, your teachers, your staff, your principals, and your superintendent. The goal isn't to hire a superintendent. The goal is to hire your best superintendent for now, for what you need now. And then that person will create a culture of teamwork, working together, everyone caring about each other, helping each other. Like the students say at Daly Middle School, for example, about what they like about that middle school. People push us here. The teachers care about us here. We work together. We support each other. You see, that's the kind of culture that I want. Tough on the work. Here's the short answer. Tough on the work, gentle with the people.
We brushed a little bit, I know, with Mr. Leary's questions on the evaluation system, and I know that you've referenced the new system that's coming to Lowell, coming to the state, you know, Commonwealth, that we're implementing here in Lowell. It was one of the key factors in our advertising and whatnot, our familiarity. So could you kind of share with us your impressions of it as an instrument, well, I guess more importantly, as a system, and how you see taking these next steps with that system here in our district?
Yeah, it had many analogs to some of the pioneering work we were doing in Memphis around teacher evaluation. It really does. What I see that here in Massachusetts, on a funny note, a lot of folks are retiring. Okay, they don't want any part of this thing. It's too much work. It's too not objective enough, and they didn't have input and so forth. But the good news is we're not going back, and it is holding everyone, all of us, more accountable for high performance for our students. It needs to be tweaked a bit. We need to have more self-assessment of the professionals and let that be part of the evaluation metric. And it needs to have more dimensions. What does the community say? What do students say about you in survey fashion? And what do other staff say in the vertical alignment and in the horizontal alignment about you as a colleague and your professionalism and your effectiveness? We get those pieces in really good fashion like we had going. We can go to the head of the class in using evaluation as a tool for improvement, as a tool for growth and learning, and not a gotcha kind of a tool. And that's what I want to see it and the best of us use it in that way. But there are some elements that need to be tweaked.
In your various positions, and I know that you've been in kind of some smaller and some very, very large districts, could you describe the relationships you're able to build? I'm looking right now for specifics around kind of the municipalities you were functioning as part of, in being able to kind of reach out to a municipality and be able to emphasize school needs, maybe not versus municipality needs, but in conjunction with them?
Yes, I think that's a terrific idea. Now, you have a little different structure that I'm used to, but I think I could get used to it, but I can't possibly chase it. This 2 year, I'd be worn out, trying to chase that. But I do think that you have to have a good relationship with the mayor, and in the cities I've been in and the places I've been in, that's been the case. And you try to work together around some key cross in the Venn diagram right in here. What are the issues that affect my city, and what are the issues that I know your children work together on that? Issues around truancy, issues around, for example, wraparound services for really needy families, things of that notion. We've signed compendiums and compacts, mayor and superintendent and so forth. Board of Selectmen in smaller towns are important to develop a relationship, make a good pitch, and get them prepared for what the budget is about and what's coming, so it's not a surprise at town hall meeting only. And same here, work closely with school committee members and city council members, not as the only person, but together. Connie and Kreiner go sit with several council members, go to Boston to sit with key congressional people who are going to help us get a bill passed that's going to help provide more funding for newcomer classrooms, for example. So I'm good at it. It's just I'd have to figure it out what you need here and what that really means. What does it mean here? Do you sit individually with council members? Do you make presentations to council members? Is the mayor going to be a mayor for a long time, or is the mayor rotate, kind of like school board chairs do? Those are different kinds of things, but they can be easily addressed with. The key is to be buttoned up. That's the key. Buttoned up, on your A game all the time, well prepared, and you're the educational leader. You're the educational ambassador. So people expect, the officials expect you to have answers about the critical issues. You don't know everything, but you have the answers, or you know where to go find them. And that's what you get. You get a great presenter and knowledgeable leader about those issues from me. You can trust in the information you get from me. Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Cash. It was a pleasure to have lunch with you today, and it was a very nice conversation. So first off, can you describe briefly for us the performance management systems you had implemented when you were in Miami-Dade, in the Miami-Dade district? And you had alluded to that when you were talking. So
very briefly, because they were fairly complex, I focused mainly on what we call managerial exempt personnel. That was all of the administrators in the district, from regional superintendents, deputy superintendents, to chiefs, to directors, to principals, okay, and assistant principals. So I developed a very comprehensive performance scorecard around the key strategic goal areas for the district, because it was aligned. Superintendent's performance evaluation was aligned to scorecard of every administrator, and then down to the scorecard of every principal. And there's 365 schools, probably 800 principals, and 60,000 employees and people affected by the work. Broad Foundation saw it as one of the 5 major initiatives for Miami-Dade that was helping them to become Broad finalists 3 years in a row for moving diverse student populations achievement. So those scorecards, which took, it was hard work, and you have to tweak them with the principals. You have to tweak them with the people that are being affected by them until they're really useful. It's got the right data and the right measures on it. Because some measures are good, but they're soft and they don't mean anything. And I've seen some of that in the work here, for example. You give yourself greens for things that is soft. It doesn't matter. But what I saw was that it then helped the superintendent have quarterly meetings and help drill down into the tissue the work of a large, complex district. And that's what we need. We don't necessarily need scorecards per se, but we need tools that are aligned and drilled down from the superintendent's performance evaluation, and that everyone is aligned, and teachers and so forth, to the work that the school board says, this is where we're going. That's why you need a strategic plan so bad. That's why you need strong, clear strategic goals right now, because then whatever work the superintendent does, it aligns to that. And you can see very clearly why what we're doing matters and why it makes sense, because you set the goals. You said what's important. And until we get that alignment and everybody onto performance measures that align to that, we'll kind of be still swinging hard. We're working hard, but where we're actually going to hit is up the chance a little bit. I want to narrow that gap.
Great. Okay, so my next question is, aside from curriculum, can you tell us a bit more about the other areas of business operations you're directly involved? And what budgeting structure do you prefer?
What budget, what?
Budgeting structure? Performance-based or?
Yeah, so hands-on in both Miami, Martha's Vineyard, and in Memphis on all of the operations. In the superintendent role, and then as chief of accountability, cutting across all of those silo areas and helping them break down and become more cross-functional. So all of them, IT, human resources, transportation, food services, nutrition and health services, curriculum and instruction, professional development, communications, IT, safety and security, on and on, the auditor, the lawyer, the counsel, the general counsel. I'm not over that person, but that person talks with me on a regular basis because of the legal issues that are always in play in a large district, and every part of the organization. Not only hands-on it, but very clear about where the gaps are in terms of being effective in that area. So we went from ineffective in a number of areas, and I was clear in the meetings about why that was and how I knew that was, and the board knew, but the board wanted something done about it. Two, winning national awards and regional awards for effectiveness and efficiency in 9 out of 11 departmental areas. That's tremendous growth and accomplishment in large, complex districts. So it wouldn't take as long to know, exactly here on, this is a very manageable wraparound district as far as my arms could get around it quickly, who's effective and who's less effective. Relative to what the schools need in this area. So you have to oversee, is my point. You can't just delegate and that's his role or her role, and then expect that's going to be really, really good work. You have to inspect what you expect. And I do that on a regular basis, and it's a good learning piece, and it keeps everybody on their toes.
Excellent. So my third question is, can you outline for us strategies that you had employed or implemented to increase parent engagement, and what metrics did you use to measure your success?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Parent engagement is the key word. I like that you use that instead of parent involvement. Parent engagement means really getting out and actively trying to engage parents and seeing what they want to do, what they can do, and what they need help doing. The way you get at that, there are many methods that I use. One of the best large-scale ones was what I call annual or quarterly town hall meetings. So I would have town hall meetings with all of the parents in a region, and they'd be invited up to one of the high schools in that region, and we'd go for 4 hours, mics everywhere, and questions answered and addressed, and challenges and things they didn't like or were worried and concerned about, all of that. So take as long until the last question is asked. So town hall meetings. Another one was demand parent summits. These are parents that aren't often crowded, but they're 50 really vocal and caring and strong voiced parents that you don't want to lose their students. We are losing some students. We don't have all of our market share here. Lowell should have every single student that is in its district residential community. We shouldn't lose not one student to, I got lost over there, that's why I know about it, innovation something. It has a red sign like this. But they should all be here, okay? I was in all the communities. Here's my third strategy. Tell me if I miss any. The Acre, Belvedere, up on Holyrood. I went up to Holyrood. They told me, "You're lost, son." I said, "No, I'm just driving through." I went to the Pawtuxetville, Central, South Lowell, Imperial Gardens over here, and Highlands. That was a big one. I was over in Highlands for quite a bit, up and down the street. Seems like a lot of people live in that community. So you have to be, and my point is, you get in the community, you get out the car, you see somebody walking with a dog, and you stop and talk to them. You talk to them for 20 minutes. 20 minutes might become 40 minutes. And you can learn more from talking about the education system, your experiences in it, from some of those chats than you can in anywhere else. So every means available to engage constituencies. I will go. I go to church. I go to every church there is. And I say, "May I speak for 10 minutes?" Or, often they say, "That's great, we want you to." And I make a plea and say, "I want to get to know you. I want to know what you want to see in your schools." The new immigration groups that come, they have leaders. They have people who you go in and try to get and to know. And then they hook you up with parents, and you develop alliances with those new incoming groups that you have in come all the time here. So any way I'm open to. And then I listen to the principals to hear what their best methods have been, their most successful. In Memphis, if you cook something, everybody comes. And I used to do it through meals, in other words, and we'd have potluck, and we have a lot of things that way. So I'm open, I'm creative, but I'm active in it. I don't sit back and whine about it. That's my point.
Okay, great. Okay, so next is, please tell us more about the initiatives you had designed to address learning gaps, increase graduation rates, reduce dropout rates, and otherwise engage children in learning that were at risk.
Yeah, see, these are not, these you got 10 minutes, these are heavyweight questions.
Take the rest of the time because we won't have any other questions after that.
Oh, my God. It is a terrific question. What I can say is there are quite a few programs, really. Here's what I want you to know. I have always worked with what's called a prenatal to career continuum. You see, you don't improve the graduation rate by starting in the 12th grade, and certainly in places, Miami is included, where I work, where there was a high teenage pregnancy rate. We work with that through prenatal education and beginning to get our teenagers and other folks to have healthy lifestyles and so forth, and work more on prevention. I had what I call they were academies where our overage for grade, prep academies, instead of calling them alternative schools, I call them prep academies. And this one, it wasn't the only thing, but this one initiative where I took the highest behavior issue kids and the oldest kids. You know, when you have kids 14 in the 6th grade, they're overage for grade. I had 33% of the kids overage for grade. Put them in 4 region-based prep academies in a online, as hard as you want to study and as much time as you want to put in, you can do your course recovery and you can get your graduation plan established and get out with a post-secondary option. And I had about 1,000 kids in each of 4 of those prep academies. Principals were delighted. I put really special skilled people in those, and it helped our graduation rate and reduced our dropout rate, because normally those kids would drop out and they'd be in the criminal justice system. So those are some of the initiatives that you do. My point is you have to tailor it to the students and you be very, very relentless and bold about what we can do. I talked already to a principal today who said we need more before school and after school programs. I gave him an idea. He loved it, and he said it was creative. Let's do that. And by the way, he might call you because he might be one of the ones that was doing something else, and now he might be doing something. I'm just teasing you. All right. The point is, all of these things, you have to be creative, innovative, and not say, well, we don't have the funds. We don't have the money. Find another way to get it done. And that's what you get in this leader. We go in search of extramural funding. And I brought over $170 million that we wouldn't have ordinarily had into one district in 3.5 years. That's pretty good. And you need that kind of funding coming in here from an array of sources. So these are some of the approaches. Health clinics. I opened 4 regional health clinics for kids who had health issues that were unbelievable. Obesity, scoliosis, speech and language, hearing, all kind of health issues, nutrition issues. And these health clinics were free to them and to their families. And we started to really make a big difference in having healthier children in our schools as a result of this free health services that I was able to get sponsorship from local colleges and universities. So it goes on with what we have done. And what can be tailored here.
Dr. Cash, we need to move on to the next.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's a
My
tough
fault.
question. That's a long question.
I know, I apologize, I pushed you
I'm
over
waiting to
10
hear the
minutes.
mayor's question because they're going to be yes or no questions. I'll bet you. I'll bet you.
Thank you, Dr. Cash.
Okay.
You know me
Thank
pretty
Christy.
well.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, for
Thank
being
you.
here, and congratulations.
Yeah.
My first question for you is, could you please give us an example of an unpopular decision that you had to make? And how did you proceed with the decision? And what factors did you
How
consider?
did I what?
Proceed with the decision.
Well, I mean, this work, you make 6 or 7 tough decisions every day, you know, especially when you're trying to move needles and improve culture and change things that have been stagnant for a long, long time. I'll give you 2. One, healthcare. We had a Cadillac healthcare system for everyone. It was really good. You could get cosmetic surgery. You could get any surgery you wanted. You could go get your weight reduced. You could get your hair made over. You could get everything off of the health care. And we said the time has come when it's a little bit too expensive for the city and the county to bear. We're gonna have to ratchet it down. Well, it was unpopular, particularly with who? With the retirees. And they came down in busloads, you know. They came down in busloads. Now, the way I handled it, though, I educated the school board on it with all of the charts and all of the reasons why, and it wasn't radical. It was going to be a gradual reduction from an 80-20 split to a 70-30 split, and like that. And I went out and talked with the retirees to say this is coming. And they said, well, we are too. We hear you, Dr. Cash, but we're coming too. Anyway, it was unpopular, but when you're in a structural deficit and it saved you $13-14 million a year, it's to me a necessary move. All right, that's one. Another was principal fires. Again, you talked about how do you assess and evaluate principals. Well, within the first 2.5 years, I had to fire 110. Well, I didn't have to, but I did. I fired 110 principals. And you can imagine that that wasn't popular. Dr. Cash, do you know how many sorority members and fraternity members and church members that you know, put on the street? Long story short, that was the tough, relentless work for folks that were not moving the needle. It was actually regressing, looking at data, looking at culture in the school, and it's time. And I knew what the blowback would be like that, but again, I prepared the board. I said you wanted transformation here around some of this work. This is what it's going to take. Now, 2-3 years later, much better core group of principals, and many of the schools that were low performing are doing much better because you got rid of folks that needed to go home. Not popular, but it has to be done. I don't see that kind of thing going on in Lowell, but I see there's some moves that'll have to be made. And if you do them fairly, you do them consistently and with good justification and support, professionals usually can accept can accept the decision. Or you find something that happened to you or your home or whatever, and they didn't take it so well. You know, I've had those kind of threats too. But the point is, this is hard work, and if you're ready and buttoned up and ready to go, you can make those tough decisions. I can make tough decisions, but they have to be the tough right decisions. The tough right decisions.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. How do you plan to raise the performance of the lowest achieving students without neglecting the highest performing students and those who fall in the middle?
Yeah, let me be clear. All of these are really good questions. We want, 5-minute answers and so forth. Mike, I see you over there. But what I'm telling you is this is not easy. I don't have all of the answers. I'm just giving you approaches to it. I'm giving you what can work. I'm giving you where I would start with that. And where I start with that is with the folks here. The teachers have answers for that. The school principals and their teams have practices that have already moved low-performing students on the state accountability measure to a higher level in a relatively short time. What is that story? Let's tell that story and spread it across the pre-K spectrum here, if it's a pre-K, for example. Pre-K through 4, I'm sorry. You have a number of pre-K 4. That's mainly what you have. So for me, it's getting down and looking at the individual data. My point is, I know how to move the needle. It's moved at the micro level, not at the macro level. And you train and develop professionals to be able to do that with school-based staff, those closest to the learner, as teachers. And you don't have the comprehensive, deep-level professional development plan here at this time for all of the different levels of teachers, content, pedagogy, and so forth here. They need more help. They need more consistent, research-based help to do their work.
Thank you. My next question is, in your role as superintendent, how would you advocate for funding at the state level?
Funding?
Public education.
Well, I can beg if it's for the right thing. I don't like to beg just to beg, but I'll tell you that your foundation budget these days for where you've accreted to is tapped out. It's tapped out. You can't do much more with what you currently have. You're going to have to figure out additional areas of revenue. But in addition to going and ask, what I will do first is make sure that we have taken every step possible for cost savings. And I know there's always areas that haven't all been tapped because I did it. You did these lights, are they all yeah, they're pretty good, actually. But every chance or every opportunity, where can we save dollars? Where can we avoid costs? There's things that you bought and that are sitting in places. And so we're wasting money that way. They haven't been out of the box yet. You've got science that is abysmal, the scores here. I'm just being honest. And you have, what's the plan for that? Have you bought things? If you bought it, did you buy the right stuff? Have you got the PD occurred to go with it? And where is it? Where is it? You see? So if we're buying things that don't work, that's not good expenditure. And I look at that very closely and bring recommendations. Stop it. Stop doing what doesn't work. And let's make sure we're doing what is working. And then the third area is revenue generation. How do you generate revenue? What opportunities can you take to do that? And that's another area where I have, some expertise to make sure that we can bring additional revenue here for our students in the areas they need. You're not going to get it through the taxpayers today. You're not going to get it that much from the state. But if I have a good case, like the newcomer classrooms that need more support, in this district here in particular, I will go to the state with my backing and with my team, and you included, some of you, and say, we need more funds to support our newcomer programs and our children that are coming to our school every day.
Thank you. My last question. Ms. Ross-Sikowicz brought it up a little bit, but we'll go into it a little bit more. How have you worked to improve the graduation rates in the districts that you've worked in and the lower the dropout rates? Or what success have you had?
I've had good success. The prep academies was one important measure for that, because you get more kids back on ramp and take them out of the dropout pool and put them back into the graduation pool. That's one thing. You have to make sure you increase rigor while you also increase support. So I train more AP course teachers through College Board because we had low AP enrollment, and then that helps rigor and it helps graduation rates as well. And then you just have to start with that whole cradle to career continuum, starting with more investment in the early childhood continuum right on through. Fourth grade is a key level, and then into middle school. Ninth grade academies was a big one for me. All of my high schools had ninth grade gender-based academies. It was the gender-based academy that worked really well with around the social issues for the population in Memphis. And then you have to have a wide array of programs for kids who might not go on to college, but they still need rigor and a post-secondary option. So vocational, technical, culinary, art, horticulture, landscaping, anything that is a local business that could use more, but you need to have programs that get an occupational certificate for students and get them ready for entry-level work. That improves the graduation rate because they see something in the high school that they're interested in, and they come and they stay and persist. Getting persistence is a key part of improving your graduation rate. So we've done work in all of those areas to improve it 3 points, 4 points, 5 points at a time. It's hard to raise graduation levels, way over time. You usually go 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, but it can be done if you rethink your programs.
Thank you, Dr. Cash.
Okay.
Good evening, Dr. Cash, and welcome to Lowell.
Good evening.
I have a few questions here for you. Partnerships are extremely important, very dear to me, and I think they can be so very effective for a school system and certainly needed today. Can you give me an example of a unique partnership that you yourself developed, and also for what you know of Lowell at this point, could you also share with us a potential partnership that you might want to implement in our system?
So some quick different ones. One, I really liked what I did with the mayor, and I did with a councilman and a pastor. It was called Dress for Success. And everybody liked, all the kids when I would go out into the schools liked the way I dressed. They liked my ties, they liked my shoes, they said, Dr. Cash, you're sharp. So what I did with the principals, I said, look, there's no reason why kids can't learn that when you dress in a particular attire, it means something to the people who are going to employ you. So we developed a Dress for Success campaign. And we developed a music video, and each of us had a little rap part to it. And we had kids I donated 150 ties to the high school students, taught them how to tie them. Parents didn't know, and the kids didn't know. So that was really fun, but it was a successful initiative and partnership with the mayor, with the faith-based community, and it impacted kids in a fun way, a good way. Another more significant one is starting an education foundation. We started an education foundation with the Memphis City Schools. They never had one before. And it was clear to me that when I went around and looked at the 33 high schools and all the needs that they had in academic programming and support for students who were poor, on and on and on, curricular support needs, after-school care, we needed a foundation that we could get money, that we could lobby for, solicit from foundations and philanthropies, because we had some really top people in that community that had worked billions of dollars came through Memphis every year, so how to tap into that. So through that education foundation, when the Gates grant came in at $100 million, it only took me 6 months to get a $22 million community match, Mr. Conway. So the one that's closest to this, and it's not exactly, but it's really close, is the idea is how to continue to get grant funds in, is your Project Learn here. Your Project Learn. I just heard about it through a principal because I was asking him about, well, you need that. Do you have a foundation to give you that? And she talked about Project Learn. And I said, well, how much have they, generated? Is it a one-person shop or is it a multi-dimensional organization, so forth and so on. Long story short, you have an existing structure. How can we continue to make it connect with the needs that our schools clearly have right now? And I think I could help be a connector with that. Would even want to sit on the committee if possible for the next, because I think they're in between people right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Cash.
Okay.
Next question, and one of my colleagues has already basically touched on it, and that is the hiring of principals. Could you give me an example of the actual process or the mechanics of how you would set up a screening committee for your, let's say, assistant principals or directors? And would there be a consistency throughout the system with it, or would you leave it up to each principal to do what they want to do? No. The large or small for the critical positions that affect the system-wide population of students, and even principals, high school, elementary school, middle school. You get a committee of cross-section of folk who can help you screen the applications to come in. Usually it's a 5 to 7 member for the executive staff, higher level, and then for principals, depending on if it's high school, it might be 17, 18 members, and on down from that. But before that, Mr. Conway, what needs to happen is you got to go wide. You got to go wide with the postings, with the advertising, with the recruiting for these positions. What I saw on Martha's Vineyard and what I saw in districts maybe not quite as big as this one, but up to this size, is that you tend to go with who applied. So you post locally, you post for 2 weeks, you closed off the search, or you close the application, and then you got a pool of 8, 10, 22, all sort of local. Some have done it 6 times before, and they're going again, and some are new, and But to me, it's not a robust enough pool for these important levels of expertise where we expect them to be well researched, thoroughly knowledgeable, proven expertise, proven leadership ability, on and on. And you're in a region that is rife with talent. You've got UMass Lowell right here. You've got MIT, Harvard, Boston, this whole Northeast region, the 28 corridor, the technology corridor, on and on. You've got great people coming out of these, Cambridge, Lesley, on and on. And you go national. I go wherever I can find the best talent. I want the best talent.
Why shouldn't Lowell have the best talent available? So my point mainly is that the aggressiveness needs to be taken on the front end to get a really, really good pool. Once you get the pool, a strong applicant pool, then you sit down and select the people that have worked with you and help you make the best selection. As superintendent, I always interview at least 2 people at the end of the process to say, this is the one I think will fit our work the best for this work. So yes, I'm inclusive with it. It's cross-sectional. It's not just administrators sitting on an administrative search. There's teachers, there's parents, there's community members. I love how you had the student in this search, for example. So wherever it's appropriate and possible, get a student involved if it affects them. That's the process, and it's consistent. It's a consistent approach. A team of professionals will work with me to make the hire.
Thank you, Doctor. During the preparation of your annual budget, would you include the various stakeholders? Would you bring them to the table or reach out to them, to the community, and so forth, to have input as far as the importance of the budget? And I think we kind of touched on that a few minutes ago, but could you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Amplify it a little bit. Absolutely. I've actually improved practice in that regard. Practice was sort of less transparent, if you will, more internal, budget developed, and then brought to the board, and then the board sort of hashed it around for 2 days. They had public hearings and all that, but by that point it was somewhat superfluous, the hearings and so forth. So no, what we worked to do was first is, for me, I have retreats. I believe in retreats with the school board and retreats with the staff. First with the staff regarding the budget. And it's not about, weighted, zero-based or anything. What I do is I scrutinize what is in the budget currently, what is working, and I make my research people come and say, here's the data on this. We invested $10 million in this, but it's not being used with fidelity, you see? And so why isn't it being used with fidelity? And there's a number of examples of that. And then we would stop it. Now, if it was something that people liked, but it needed more training and professional development, then we get the professional development so that they could use it better and more fully. But my point is that you have these retreats to go through these line item areas where you have control over the budget. Personnel, benefits, all of that, that's not what we're talking about in the requests and the asks that schools ask for every year. Okay. So that we're not accreting on top of. And then you start to put budgets online. You see? And you start to put it online. This is what I did. So that people could look in. They had a website to go to. And you come in, you look at these line items. You look at what we're asking for. You look and see if you have interest. Let your school committee member know. Let us know. Let the principal know. And then you get teachers, you get everybody involved. So the stakeholders are involved in an ongoing way with the online process and with the hearings before a final approval by the school board is happening. So it's very inclusive, is my point.
Thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
As far as the budget is concerned, if we run into problems, economic problems, which obviously we have, it seems as though year after year, and you have to take a look at that budget and do some trimming, where might you look first and where might you look last to do the trimming?
Yeah, it's a fair question. It's a good question. I never have any preconceived ways to look at what I will cut until I know how much are you asking to be cut. And
well,
then,
let's put a number just for argument's sake. We have somewhere in a $160 million budget.
Yeah.
If we're talking about 1%, let's say 1% at $1.6 million. What would you, where would you make those cuts?
Well, I'm gonna break that down again by school to see where the asks are coming from and find out where the priorities are. Some things you might not be able to cut because the population is burgeoning in that regard, and it's immediate attention. Others are asks, but they can be put down the road a bit. So they're going to be non-instructional areas to begin with. 1.6 turns out to be somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 if you're talking about 25 schools here. You see, so each school may have to be asked if he or she, if we can contribute with that after I've looked at central and all of those things. People often say central and administration, but they don't realize that this is usually a relatively small percentage of the overall budget. It's not 1.6 million, for example. Right. And so, yeah, we can cut if you would see that, but usually you've cut down in that direction over time. Lowell has cut into programs, into support staff and other resources over time that it used to have that it no longer has. And so if you keep cutting in some areas any further, you're beyond bone. You're just not going to be able to lift the needle and go to world-class system that you say you want to go to. So I'm saying I look at it on whole, I look at it on balance, and I try to work more toward cost savings, cost avoidance, and revenue generation. And then if we have to take a cut, I'll look at areas that can yield the 1.6 and make a strong recommendation to you, giving our best thinking. But I never make it on, this is what I do. We do it in consultation with all of the constituents.
Doctor, I thank you for your answers.
Well, thank you. Good questions, but they're meaty. They're meaty. I apologize. Yes, sir.
Dr. Cash, nice to meet you. Welcome
Nice
to
to
Lowell.
meet you too.
I'm good with yes or no answers.
All right.
All right? Can I call you Kreiner?
Kreiner is great.
Yes?
Yes.
Would you move to Lowell?
Excuse me?
Would you move to Lowell?
Absolutely.
If you were hired?
Absolutely.
Yes. You visited Pawtucketville today.
I said that might be one I didn't, because when I talked to Mike
Yes or
Cassidy,
no?
he said it's a rural area, and I don't remember any rural.
You were in Pawtucketville, yes.
Okay.
Did you like it?
I liked all the ones
All
I
right.
visited. Yes, yes.
Will you work without a contract? We have a city manager, we have an auditor, we have a clerk, all hired by the city council. They work without a contract. We have an ordinance that provides benefits.
Yeah. Two-part answer. One, you will be so pleased with my work that I won't really be worried about it. You'll be wanting to get me a contract, okay, because you want to keep me.
So is that a yes, you'll work without a contract?
I will work, I need to know what it means. I don't know what it means to work without a contract. Does it mean you can be fired at any time?
No.
Or do you have to go through a process? So if you tell me a little bit about what it means, I can tell you. Yes,
my point is
my main answer is no, but if I hear you, so I can hear you, I don't want to be presumptuous. It could be possible.
So to me, contracts don't work. It doesn't work for the employee, and it doesn't benefit the taxpayer.
I
So
see.
we have a city manager, and we've tried them in the past, and I voted them in the past, and now I'm not a proponent. I think it sets artificial expectations and/or boundaries.
I see.
So my point is, we do have ordinance that covers all of our department heads. They work without a contract. Our city manager doesn't work with a contract. Our city auditor, our city clerk. So. And we spent an inordinate amount of time just with this last superintendent focusing on contracts and contract discussions. I believe they are a distraction, and quite frankly, I think they become an impediment. So does that mean that, any given night that you get, no, I don't believe that. I've never seen it here in the city, but I think it's a fair question. I don't believe in them, and that's why I wanted to ask you.
Okay. I think if you have a world-class system in terms of the treatment of your employees, you treat them with respect and they're professional, and that's the model you have for everybody, I could fit into that model. But I think that when you're really seeking a world-class educational leader of the depth and knowledge that I have and that you want to bring and attract that we've been talking about all night, then they should be given a respectful professional contract to go along with that program of work.
Thank you. I didn't want to spend too much time on that. I do have a lot of many questions, but thank you.
Yep.
But getting back to, and I wanted to say, you have a very extensive resume, and I'm pleased with your responses. They're very thorough tonight. I want to say, in one of your attachments, I was I was touched by you feel one of your most treasured accomplishments was being married to your beloved wife for 34 years. I think that says something about you. You talked about a lot of accomplishments, but that was the best. So I wanted to make note of that. But just getting on to touching on some areas that my colleagues have not. Can you tell me real briefly about your race to the top and the $68 million and what you did in order to get that, and what could you do for Lowell?
Excellent. We got to work quickly because this president is moving, and it may or may not be supported going forward. But what we did, we started and was built upon the work in Memphis. It wouldn't have gotten it if the work in Memphis hadn't been so strong and so thorough. And then what the president did, and Arnie Duncan and others came to Memphis, looked at the work, and then said this whole state needed to be supported in that way. So we got $68 million and used it to bolster each step of the way along this prenatal to career continuum. Bolstered early childhood programs and support for those, bolstered fourth grade mathematics, particularly for males in our system, because the data said that was the fall-off point. If you didn't do that, you're going to continue to fail. Bolstered ed plans in the 8th grade, so the students began to have a graduation plan, start the thinking in 6th grade in middle school, and then by 8th grade have it finalized before you go into 9th grade. That was really, really important. Spent $1 million so that every middle school through high school student had a specific ed plan leading to graduation. Those kinds of things were some of the ways we spent those dollars, and they made impact on moving needles.
Thank you. So moving on to in 2012, 2013, can you just discuss real briefly new standards were put in place in Tennessee? Mm-hmm. Is that correct? And we call them MCAS here, but it looks like you refer to them annual measurable objectives, AMOs, for the district?
Off of the TCAP.
Not the TCAP, right.
TCAP, yeah.
Right. I'm not familiar with that, but I'm presuming
it's
something similar.
Tennessee Comprehensive Assessment Program.
So what was the strategy behind it? You had some significant gains. Level 5 is the highest student growth in 3 years.
The most elegant innovation and work that we did was being able to put all 7,500 teachers, 7,500 teachers onto a 1 through 5 measure in terms of effectiveness. And when you look up on the big board and see that you have this number level 1s, this level number 2, 3, 4, never been done before, number one. And then second, we made sure that all core or tested subjects were taught by level 4 or level 5 teachers. So another answer, an effective teacher in every subject, every day, in every school, throughout the year and throughout the course of a student's schooling. That's what has to happen. Okay. And you can't just look at it subjectively. It has to be measured. We measured it, and that's how we knew they were effective.
Just in 30 seconds, tell me what the Golden Carrot Award is.
The what?
Golden Carrot Award? Yeah,
that's for the school district that provides the most nutritious, by physician standards, meals to students.
Okay. All right. So I'm running tight on time here, but can you explain to me systematic fault lines and what you mean by that?
8 fault lines in Memphis. First, early childhood. Out of the 8,000 students that come to kindergarten in that whole district every year, less than half had any pre-K experience. That's a fault line. Second was overage for grade. 1/3 or 33,000 students were overage for grade by 1 or 2 grades. So if a student failed, there was no treatment the next year, we just talked louder to that student. Okay. A third fault line was health and nutrition and health. Fourth was safety and discipline. We had 156 high, what we call crime, out of per 1,000. It was the wild, wild west in our schools, and we cut that down to less than 8 per 1,000. but it had to be addressed. And then a fifth was the teacher work. What does your teacher corps look like? And so there's 3 more. I'll stop
No,
there.
that's good,
I'll
because I
stop
got
there.
2 more questions and I got 2 minutes. So,
Okay, all right.
so we.
But you see, these are major issues. If you don't address them,
Oh, no, I agree. That's why I asked you about the
Yeah.
fault line. I
Okay.
wanted you to elaborate a little bit.
Okay.
So we hear all the time, state of the art. We want our students to have the best
Right.
curriculum and teaching in our school system. So how can you ensure our parents that, you'll implement the state of the art curriculum and learning tools, and what might some of those be?
well, that is not a yes or no question. But what I will tell you is that teachers and a really, really good curriculum specialist or a deputy for curriculum and instruction, those are skill sets that I have, for example. You have to have it. They have to be the best at that. That's the superintendent's important, but that role may be the second most important role.
Okay.
I'd look to see if you have it, and then we'd make sure that best practices were being followed in literacy instruction, mathematics instruction, science instruction, all of those core areas that you're tested on to move to level 1. If you don't have good teaching and support materials going on in those areas, the students aren't going to move where you want them to move. So we'll go out to parents and tell you we've got the very best here in our teacher staff for these subjects, and we've got the very best materials to teach those subjects with.
Thank you. I want to give you just a quick hypothetical, and it's not a yes or no, but you're hired by the Lowell Public Schools. You're faced with a foundation budget increase, 3% on the average. State funding is not going to meet that by any stretch. You have contracts that aren't settled. You have the city side contributed a record, met the net school spending, additional $4 million. We have some underperforming schools. We have enrollment. We have, hundreds of kids coming into our school district not being funded through the federal government. What would your first 30 days be like, or what would your first 3 priorities be?
Yeah, that's the work.
Because I think you've been there, and I want to know.
That's the work.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, the first days would start on Monday. I understand you're making the decision soon. For me, it starts right away. So it'll already be 60 days in before July 1, and then 30 more days will be 90 days. So I'm studying every plan that exists or doesn't exist. I'm looking at all of the data for each one of these schools. I'm talking to every principal. I'm talking to teacher teams. I'm talking to all of you. In depth and as frequent as you want to within those time period, and then I'm going to start to make a recommendation about where what you need in terms of plans and in terms of immediate low-hanging fruit that we can tackle and achieve.
I should have started with that question, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm way out of time.
I will
and it's my
gladly
call.
yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Pawtucketville so we can finish this.
So you get 90 days for 30 days for me. It's a good question, though. You hit the ground
Seriously,
running, and it starts immediately.
Finish your thought on that.
Well, you hit the ground, you start immediately. My point is, I'm studying all throughout. You don't wait till you get here. It starts immediately. You're on the clock, and for me, nobody's gonna work harder. Nobody work harder. From way before sun up and way after sundown is how I work, and then everybody who's already doing it like that will feel all right. Well, we've got a team leader here who's gonna keep us encouraged and motivated.
Thank you, Mr. Cash. I do appreciate it. Now, thank you, Mr. Gendron.
Thank you for those questions. Really good.
Good evening, Dr. Cash.
Yes, sir.
Again, it's great to chat with you a little bit in the reception this evening.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, if we go on a retreat, are we going to Martha's Vineyard?
Yeah.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
That's a good yes or no answer.
That's a good idea. You got to find out. Well, you got to find your own place to stay. You can't. You're not staying with me. Just teasing.
Okay.
Yeah. We make something happen at the Harbor View.
Okay,
At the
sounds
Harbor
good.
View.
Sounds good. So I just want to step through your
I'll pay for it.
Your
not the
recent-
taxpayers.
your recent resume here a little bit. I like
Yeah.
to walk through your employment history a little because I think decisions you make about your career are valuable to
Sure.
my thought process. So, first of all, you were teaching down in Washington at Howard University, and you decided to move to Martha's Vineyard. Mm-hmm. What predicated that?
Well, I had a wife, and I had her sister, who was a teacher on the island, and they needed fresh, innovative thinking. Had all the resources in the world, one of the highest per pupil costs anywhere, but they needed innovative leadership to say, how can we go even further? How can we get the very best out of our teachers and for our students?
So your wife wanted
so
to
they
go
lobbed,
there. Is that
she
the
wanted to
answer?
go. She drove that one. And I looked into it and liked it the more I looked into it, because I wasn't thinking about it. I said, are you kidding? No, no. But, you know, she said it'd be a good place to rear our children, too, because they lived in Montgomery County and in PG County. We lived in several places. And it was tough with adolescents in those counties when you talk about some of the gangs and some of the fight. My kids were tough, but they didn't carry any weapons.
Yeah.
And you don't carry weapons, you're at a disadvantage in some of the places they were in school. So
Okay.
we said, let's go.
So I get that. Now, then you spent 9 years as superintendent in Martha's Vineyard. Sounds like from your resume it was quite successful.
Yeah.
And then you up and went to Miami-Dade County.
Yeah.
What brought you there?
Well, you get tired of meetings. I went to 1,372 meetings on Martha's Vineyard because every town has a school system, truly. Yeah. And every town has a school board. So there were 6 school boards. There was, each board met every month. There was an all-island committee that met every other month. And then there were all of these budget hearings and selectmen meetings. 13, I was meetinged out. And I was also bored. I knew I had more now that I wanted to contribute on a bigger stage. So fortunately, I gave a talk out in Seattle to an educator group, and out there was Dr. Rudy Crew, who was a nationally recognized leader. He liked my speech so much, he came and recruited me for a position in Miami, and he created the position called Chief of Accountability and System-Wide Performance. I was very excited to go with a mentor leader like that and do something new and fresh in my career.
Okay, thank you. And then, of course, they had 350,000 student enrollment there, which is huge.
Right.
You spent 4 years there, and then on to Memphis as a superintendent of Memphis, 110,000 enrollment.
So when Rudy knew he was going to leave, he told the people he brought, you guys might want to think about leaving, because when you're in the top 10 of the executive cabinet, whoever comes in as superintendent, you might stay, but you could be at risk too. So he gave me that cue, and then I applied to where, again, the work was. I was at Cincinnati, I was at Arlington, Virginia, and a few other places. But when chosen by Memphis, I said, this is the work, because it had the most challenges.
I see. Okay. And then, of course, 6 years at Memphis.
5.
Again, some success there, and back to Martha's Vineyard. What happened there? Was that leaving on your own accord, or what happened there?
Well, they had a historic merger. There were 3 things that converged at one time called the perfect storm. You had a fiscal situation that was becoming untenable with the district, so the board gave up its charter and wanted to merge with the county. If you give up your charter or surrender your charter, you automatically are merged with the county, because the county assumes responsibility for all the children in the county.
I see.
Long story short, the county didn't want to merge, and so it became a mess politically and all of that. And so staff was subsumed into the merger situation for about a 2.5 year period. I pushed it and worked with it as long as possible, but then resigned, and so did the superintendent of the suburbs. Both of us, in effect, were casualties of an unanticipated merger.
Great, thank you. So the other thing I wanted to ask about is you tout on your resume success with several large construction projects.
Several what?
Large construction projects?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, you tout that you were $160 million school construction in Memphis, completed on time, under budget, with clean audits.
Very proud of that.
So
Very
tell me
proud
about
of that. You know, we had great people, hired great people, and I became dogged about changing the perception of the Capital Needs Assessment Committee from, waste and fraud and overtime and change orders and never completing and of the school system to one. No. We have a lot of things in the chute that we have in the queue that we have to get done, renovations and new building, but we're going to do it right. We're going to do it along those metrics, and so we hired really good people. I brought a person in from New York who was one of the best in the country on design and following and charting the progress of construction, large construction projects. Long story short, I don't know, 20, 25 major renovations or new classroom additions or new schools altogether were built under my time in Memphis, and we're really, really proud of that. So I got involved, not so much at the micro level, but at the macro level in making sure that those things were happening with good integrity and honesty and no unnecessary change orders and so forth. So it can be a mess to manage these large school construction projects. Everybody makes money off of them.
Right.
So they have to be managed and handled very, very well.
Great, thank you. Another thing that you tout on your resume is your success with collective bargaining, especially on Martha's Vineyard. Tell me about what's the secret to your success with collective bargaining?
Well, again, you can call the union presidents and heads, some of them are retired, wherever. What they always liked was that Dr. Cash didn't hesitate if we asked him to come and sit with us and to hear what was going on, the tenor of it, the language issues when they were language issues, the fairness issues and so forth. So the issue was me helping to get to yes in a win-win situation rather than an ongoing adversarial kind of situation, which often bargaining units can get into if they mistrust administration. So trust is the key word there. And again, I'm always fair, but I don't give up the fort. I don't give away things, so I'm more on interest-based bargaining is what my style is. And we try to get everyone to understand what the current context is, what we can do and what we can't do, and why. But what we will try to do if it will help resolve this disagreement. So fairness, openness, and being willing to insert yourself if you need to.
Great, thank you. And my final question is, do you think Lowell is a broken system?
What part of it? The school system?
Yeah, the school system.
No, I don't think it's broken. I think it has some things that need to be repaired, some things that need to be closely examined and addressed. This is not a throw away everything and start over. You hear that conversation a lot. And actually, one of the things that happened in Memphis is they were surprised, the powers that be, that I actually was making headway and progress with a system that they did think was broken. So what I'm telling you is if you have the right leadership and you have the right team to do the work for children, you can make good progress. And not only will it not be then perceived as broken, it will be perceived as one of the best in class. This is what other people want to emulate, other districts want to emulate. And I will help you articulate that, show that, be that. There's a motto in Daily, be the change you seek to be for the world. You be it. And that's what I would want us to be. So no, I do think you have some family dysfunction. I'll be honest with you, but I don't think it's a broken system. I think it can be repaired with good leadership, honest leadership, and keeping communication lines open. You have all of the really best elements to be a first class school district.
Great. All right. Thank you very much for your answers.
Dr. Cash, that concludes the question and answer from all the members of the school committee, and again, we thank you. So with that, we invite you to make a closing statement.
Well, we've gone further and I apologize for that. I just want to say that I believe, again, I'll reiterate that I'm the best candidate for Lowell in this role at this time to help you with what you need to do right now to become best in class and to move into a level 1 school district. You have 6 level 1 schools. You have 11 level 3 and 10, I think, too. But they're all on the move. Some are stuck because of some leadership issues, and I know you can move all of these schools into top tier within a 3-year period. You can really make some tremendous headway. But it takes a really knowledgeable leader who's had the proven experience to be able to do that. You don't have time to experiment and do trial and error on this, and you have to hit the ground running. So as I said before, the clock will start the moment after you make the decision, and we will be off and running in a really, really good way. But I thank you for the time. I'm very impressed with what I've seen here in your beautiful children and your talented staff. But this is critical for you now. You're at a tipping point about where you're going to go. So do it thoughtfully, do it thoroughly, and let's get started.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We said if we want to just take a couple of minutes, members, a couple of minutes, and we'll bring in the next candidate. We're running about 15 minutes behind. Leary? Mr. Leary, can you carry on your time? This is our time. Clerk, Madam Clerk, can we please call the roll? We'd like to reconvene. We have the next candidate who is ready to...
Mr. Conway,
Here.
Mayor Elliott,
Here.
Mr. Gendron,
Here.
Mr. Leary, Ms. Martin,
Here.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz,
Here.
Ms. Scott.
Here.
7 present.
President would like to reconvene. Thank you. After a short break, I'd like to have bring Mr. Gilbert. Please come up, if you could come up. And if you could introduce our next candidate. On behalf of the school committee, let me welcome you to Lowell and to the Lowell City Council chamber. With that, Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you. This is Dr. Anthony Pope. Dr. Pope is currently a consultant for the Panasonic Foundation. Previous to that, he was the superintendent in Marlborough, Massachusetts.
I'm on a reality show.
The next 70 minutes may be a reality show. So, Dr. Pope, just by way of logistics, we would offer you an opportunity to begin with an opening statement, and then we will proceed with a 10-minute question and answer period per member of the school committee. And following that round, we would invite you to a closing statement. So the next individual who will begin with the line of questioning after your opening statement will be School Committee Woman Connie Martin, and then we'll just proceed alphabetically, and then we'll bring it back to you for a closing statement.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the Lowell School Committee for affording me this opportunity to interview for this most important position. Whenever we're talking about leadership for a school district, it is a very important decision. I come to you today originally from Houston, Texas. I bring a background very strong in working in diverse communities. The biggest experience that I have is I am an urban kid, a mother that raised 6 of us in the inner city of Houston, Texas. My experiences throughout my career has always focused on working with students in urban settings. The current work with the Panasonic Foundation, that focus is working in districts across the country, trying to eliminate the link between poverty and race. So all students, all meaning all, can really have the opportunity to succeed in public schools. So I thank you for that work. Thank you for this opportunity. This is not just a job. It's very purpose-driven. It's very meaningful for myself. My wife and I are both educators, and we take this work very seriously. So thank you again for this opportunity to interview for this most important position.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you
Ms.
very much.
Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Pope. Could you share with us the kind of overarching learning theories, citing any recent research or prevailing pedagogy that inform your practices and your kind of approach in looking at a new superintendency?
When I think about my approach, I quickly go to what does it mean to be a leader, and looking at the skills that are required to be a CEO in any organization, specifically public schools. Public schools are different from being a CEO in a business environment. We're not producing cement trucks. It's a little different. We're talking about personalities. I think one thing that I really focus on is collaboration. Sometimes it sounds very cliche to say collaboration, and everybody will say it, but what does that really mean in practice? I think throughout my career, I have demonstrated it by some of the accomplishments that we've had by bringing all people to the table, really empowering teachers to do that work. Another important point is strong integrity and operating with a strong sense of morals. and a sense of values that really pushes to work and always puts students at the center of the conversation. I think a strong focus on the instructional core should be at the center of any planning, any work that we do as it relates to public schools. And when I say instructional core, I'm talking teacher, student, and content, and making sure that when we align operations, the work we do with families, the work we do with teachers, should always be focused on that. A strong sense of accountability, I think, is also another component when you talk about leadership. I must first hold myself accountable, and we must all hold each other accountable for student achievement.
Thank you. When you, I believe this happened while you were in Marlboro, the implementation of the Commonwealth's new educator evaluation system, could you give us a little insight into whatever experience you may have with it, and any insights you can share about the way to continue its implementation here in Lowell?
Yes. While in Marlboro, we were during the Race to the Top initiative, we were at the beginning of implementation. We actually outsourced at the time to Teacher 21 to help assist us with professional development for administrators as well as teachers, to make sure there was familiarity with the instrument itself and the expectations. So that was the initial work. In my work, not only with the Panasonic Foundation over the last 3 years, I've also done independent consulting, which has involved coaching school leaders in different settings, and part of that coaching at sometimes involved the teacher evaluation system. Probably the biggest component is watching my wife, who's an educator in Boston Public Schools, input, artifacts, et cetera, regarding the instrument.
Could you tell me, as coming into a new superintendency, you'd really be responsible for creating and I guess disseminating a district-wide culture for your leadership team, for teachers throughout the district, for students and their families, and the community at large. What would be the kind of culture that you would like to create and foster over your time here in Lowell?
A culture of high expectations and respect. I think it's critical when you're building culture. I think, unfortunately, when you look at the temperature, if you will, of education across the country, it's become a finger-pointing game. But I think we owe it to ourselves and our children to work as professionals, where we all can walk away from the table feeling like professionals and feeling whole and complete and respected. I think that's critical. High expectations, where we're not watering down expectations for children nor adults, and holding everyone accountable to that. I think building the culture also requires great listening. As superintendent, I will come in with a very, very, very clear and public entry plan that will require hitting the ground, listening and learning. You can't come into a new position assuming you know what the fixes are. I think you have to understand the context, and I think it's critical in building culture that you listen. You have to allow principals to lead. I think the rubber hits the road with leadership at the school buildings, but you also have to empower teachers to do the work. Must respect teachers. I think when you empower teachers to lead and do what they're trained to do, great things happen. So I think those are some of the things that we have to think about, making sure we listen, making sure that we include all parents, educators, and administrators and staff in the process of educating our children.
Could you describe for me, and this does kind of, I think, follow even from the last question, but the different modes and methods that you'd rely on to communicate effectively, again, with the many different and sometimes very charged constituencies that you'll be working with. What's the kind of method, behind your communication style and plans?
One thing that I've done in my previous settings, not only as superintendent but also as assistant superintendent, as superintendent, I'm going to be very visible. I'm going to be everywhere I can, as often as I can. One thing that I employed in as superintendent, monthly community forums. I think it's important bringing the community out to ask questions, Also gives the school district a chance to let them know what's going on. And it's not a community forum that's just in one place. I think when you have a community as diverse as Lowell, I think the superintendent needs to go into the different communities to do some of these different types of community forums. Some other things that I've done, focus groups, the communication with teachers through focus groups. I also done things like called it Workout Wednesdays, where I invited the entire community to the high school track every Wednesday in my role as superintendent to walk or jog for 30 minutes. I walked. And then we met at the bleachers and we talked about schools. And anything was open, because when we're talking about the education of our children, every question should be able to be asked. So I think, those are some of the structures with the school committee. I supplied a correspondence every Monday to the school committee. I called it my superintendent memo, where we outline the different things that were happening at the school level, that were happening at central office, that was happening, that was influenced by the Department of Education. So we looked at all those different areas and make sure that if there was an ambulance that showed up at the school, every Monday the superintendent memo went out to the entire school committee. We also did a monthly newsletter electronically, as well as in print to the entire community. So I think everything is on the table when it comes to communicating. And I think you never can do enough of it. But I think the most important thing is getting in schools, making sure that people see me, people know that I am communicating the mission and vision of the school committee and the entire district.
Beautiful, thank you very much. I'll pass it along.
Welcome, Dr. Pope. Thank you so much for putting your name forward. Aside from curriculum, can you tell us a bit about the other areas of business operations you were directly involved?
Yes, other than curriculum, I was directly involved with our Director of Finance as superintendent and also as consultant. Even my roles as Assistant Superintendent, directly involved with facilities, working with the cabinet where we brought people together, working in the areas of technology, directly involved in my role as superintendent as well as my role as assistant superintendent.
Okay. And can you outline for us strategies that, well, I guess you touched upon this, but you had employed or implemented to increase parent engagement, and what metrics did you use to measure your success? I mean, I know you touched upon that with your track walks and whatnot. Okay, could you tell us a bit more about, or a bit about any initiatives you had designed to address learning gaps, increase graduation rates, reduce dropout rates, and otherwise engage children in learning that were at risk?
What was the first one again?
Sorry, it's a long question. Please tell us more about initiatives you had designed to address learning gaps, increase graduation rates, reduce dropout rates, and otherwise engage children in learning that were at risk.
Thank you for the question. As far as learning gaps, when we think about not only achievement gap, I also think of opportunity gaps. I'll give Providence Public Schools as an example. When we looked at access, we also we looked at what our policies were for as far as access to AP courses. We also did that in my role as assistant superintendent when I was in Stanford Public Schools. So we went through a process where we really reviewed the policy and seeing how we can work with principals to offer suggestions to really make changes to allow, not just allow, it still had to be an expectation where kids had more access. Other things that, in relation to learning gaps is really creating a data-driven culture. And this dates all the way back to when I was a teacher. Assistant principals working with staff on how to use data to inform planning. If we know where a student is at with both formative and summative assessment, it gives us a better chance to know what safety net programs that we can put in place to help them. So those are just a couple. Learning gaps, also more time on instruction. And this also relates to, when we talk about dropout rate, unengaged students. For example, when I was in Providence Public Schools, we had a huge problem with ninth graders in reading. we employed a program called Read 180. It was less about the program, Read 180, it was more about time on instruction. So students that were struggling based on the data, what we decided to do was to give them a double block of ELA, instead of an elective. And we've seen a significant increase in students' reading ability based on giving them more time on learning. Speaking to dropout rate and graduation rate, the best example I can give is Weymouth High School when I was principal there. We increased graduation rate and lessened the dropout rate at the same time by decreasing suspensions rate. It's hard to believe, but we actually decreased the suspension rate by 60%. And the way that we did that was really looking at our policy, looking at automatics, and trying to change a culture of working with children instead of sending them home all the time. And what that did, that gave students more time in the classroom, more time on instruction, more time and engagement within the classroom. So those are some examples of that. Also, when you think about after-school programming, we also employed at the high school at Weymouth at the time MCAS tutors based on student achievement data. We wanted to narrow in on kids that needed us the most, and we focused and worked with these students sometimes during the day and sometimes after school as well. I think the other one was disengaged students. And I think it's important, and this has happened, I can go all the way back to when I taught 6th grade. I believed in project-based learning, and I also believed in how to implement or integrate what part is in the lives of children, if it's their culture, if it's what's happening in their current lives, into that curriculum to make learning more real and relevant. And providing those opportunities. And I think also as an educator, all kids don't learn the same. So I think it's on us as educators to really do the work, to find those different modalities of learning, and work with teachers to give them the tools to work with them so they can be more engaged.
Okay, great. And let's see, what is it you wish to accomplish, were you to be selected? What is it you wish to accomplish in the first 3 months in the district? And what are your thoughts on strategic planning for our district?
I think and very similar to my first superintendency, I think the first 3 months is about listening and learning while still running the district. I think it's going to be very important when I say a public process around entry. To give an example how I did it in my past districts, my actual entry plan was on the website. If there's cable to be utilized, making it very public through parent and community forums. Let the community know this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 3 months to really gauge an assessment of where the district is at based on the voices that currently exist within the district. Once that report is written after interviewing parents, students, et cetera, and the different structures that I talked about, family and community forums, focus groups, workout Wednesdays, if we call it that, if we still do it. Those are the types of things that are just going to yield more data. In my previous superintendency, once we wrote a report of what the findings were through the lens of the instructional core. And when I say through the lens of the instructional core, we basically utilize the Public Education Leadership Project out of Harvard University, which is a framework for strategic planning. And it's going to be important that we look through it through a lens of students and teachers and content. And I think it's going to be important to do a tour of the district and be able to present what those findings are. As far as strategic planning, I think an entry process, if you're looking at it through a frame of reference that is clear to the community and the school committee, I think you have the launch of thinking about strategic planning. I think strategic planning will require a similar process to entry, hearing the voices of all stakeholders, city council, hearing the voices of parents and community, hearing the voices of school committee, everyone in the community, and organizing it in a way to where all the voices are heard, and making sure that teachers, as well as principals and all staff, are part of the process. In my previous job, we actually outlined a 5-year strategic plan in Marlboro Public Schools, which is still on their website today. And it was their first comprehensive document that outlined a 5-year vision for their district. So I think it's important because it helps when you think about fiscal planning, when you think about budgeting at the school level. If there's a clear vision of the direction that we are agreeing on as a school community of where we're going, you have a better chance, or we have a better chance of meeting those benchmarks that we outline.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Dr. Pope, and congratulations for being a finalist. My first question for you is, I wanted to know how you would align district pre-K through 12 curriculum and ensure that it's taught in all pre-K through 12 classrooms at all of our schools.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll go back to the strategic planning process and curricular development. One thing I was really encouraged and enjoyed seeing today, I did get a chance to visit a couple elementary schools to see some of the good work that was going on. I think when we talk about aligning, I think it has to be part of what our long-term mission and vision are. It's also part of making that communication very clear to principals and making sure that the leadership at the school level is also holding teachers accountable for that. But part of it is also making sure that teachers are part of the process of understanding what that long-term alignment is. When I was in Marlboro, unfortunately, I entered a district that did not have a curriculum. So we were able to align the Common Core pre-K through, we actually finished with pre-K through 8, and align it across the district. But the most important part, and that's what I think would be the most important part here as far as alignment, would make sure that we are engaging teachers. We must empower them to be part of the process. They are the experts in their field. I think you have a much better chance of implementation and buy-in when we are talking about including the people that are doing the work in the classroom. We had over 140 teachers that were involved in our curricular development, so that's going to be important.
My next question ties in well then. How would you develop and sustain, or how have you developed and sustained a pre-K through 12 comprehensive professional development program?
I think it goes back to the strategic plan again. I think in the beginning you have to be very clear about what your goals are. If we are saying that ELL is going to be a priority, if we're saying that reading is going to be a priority, I think you align your professional development based on the goals that you're setting, making sure that your teachers are receiving the training to do the work. If we're setting reading as a priority and not offering support to teachers around reading, in regard to professional development, we're not really designing professional development line to our long-term goals. So I think it's going to be important that whatever the vision, the strategic direction, that alignment needs to be very clear. And the professional development plan needs to be outlined not only based on that vision, but also based on teacher need. Sometimes when we align to our strategic plan, sometimes it's easy to forget that some teachers are in different places, so we also need to take into consideration what are the individual needs of our teachers and create a structure where there's consistency across the district.
Thank you. You mentioned project-based learning and the importance of project-based learning. Could you give some specific examples of how you implemented project-based learning in the districts that you've been involved in?
Yeah, I'll go back to when I taught Texas history. That's not a requirement here.
Lowell history is.
It was in Texas. I started my career as a middle school teacher, and the second year I taught Texas history. And when I say project-based learning, it's basically, if we're studying the Comanches, we gave children the opportunity to align their experiences to the experiences, it could have been a moral dilemma that the Comanches were facing. And we would take the larger project and allow kids the flexibility to create based on what their strengths were. Whether we had, to give you a really good example, we had one student that I think we call them, well, it was different names, but emotionally disturbed students. This was one student that was not mainstreamed at all, but we mainstreamed him into my social studies class. And it was amazing to see the video presentation that he put together, regarding the particular project that we were working on, which happened to do with Texas Indians. And it was amazing to see that we brought out a different piece that he was not able to display in other areas. So project-based learning is basically taking, similar to the Common Core, how do you take one topic and go deep and allow students the flexibility to be creative, and allow teachers the flexibility to really help them and really expand their knowledge.
Thank you. My next question is, as you lead the district, how will you use student performance results to prioritize use of resources?
One thing I think, and I've mentioned this earlier, is creating a data-driven culture. I think once that is really implemented into a district and it becomes a practice of habit, I think it really does influence how we plan. And I think it has to be set as an expectation. If it's important to all the stakeholders, and we know that when we look at data and we look at the importance of using data to know where kids are, and it's not just data where kids are, but what about program evaluation? What about other areas around special education? How often are we out district placing because we don't have programs? Looking at all the data and become a culture that really looks at it and see how we plan to meet our benchmarks to make our data better.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. Dr. Pope, I'm sorry.
All right, that's fine.
Good evening, Dr. Pope, and again, congratulations for making the finals. The first question I have tonight is, one of the most important things I see today in education are developing partnerships. I think it's almost a necessity. Could you please give me an example that through your career, educational career, that you developed on your own, developed a partnership that certainly had a great impact on the student population? And the second part is, after examining Lowell, what type of partnership might you like to develop if you are our next superintendent?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm trying to think of what an example that I can give you, but if I go to, can I give you two? Well, the first one will be very quick.
Absolutely.
As my role as superintendent in Framingham, in Marlboro Public Schools, we implemented a STEM early college program based on a grant from the Department of Education, grades 6 through 12. One important part of the early college program is for students to be able to dual enroll at a university while also taking their courses at high school. And it was unbelievable that we had not established a partnership with Framingham State University. So we established that partnership. And the reason why I'm going to give you two, because I wasn't there long enough to see it go through fruition. But the partnership was to allow students to enroll, to gain college credit while they were there. I'll go to Stanford Public Schools when my role as assistant superintendent. When I arrived at Stanford Public Schools, one thing that I was a part of was the superintendent's cabinet that was trying to bring in grant dollars from the GE Foundation. It was the beginning of the attempt to solidify a partnership, so I played a role as assistant superintendent because the partnership was really based on the work that we would be doing in math and science in the curriculum and instruction department. It was always a team approach. It wasn't something that I was doing solo on, but I played a major role because I had to have meetings with representatives from GE Foundation in regards to what we were doing around curriculum and instruction, alignment within the district. The end result, we not only solidified the partnership with General Electric, but we brought in $25 million of grant dollars for Stanford Public Schools to really focus on our work around math and science. Other districts, like I believe Cincinnati and some other districts, received it as well. So it was not an initiative that I just took on by myself. I do believe in we instead of I. I think it's much more power than that to it when you're trying to do this work.
I thank you for your answer. As, excuse me, as superintendent of schools, you're obviously involved with hiring administrators on different levels. Could you please tell me what your process is? And what I mean by the process is the actual mechanics of setting up the committees to do the vetting of these candidates or the interviewing of them?
Thank you. One thing I think is important in the role as superintendent is I think it's very important to have a team to allow them to do their job. And what I mean by that is I want to make sure that whoever is that administrator that is leading human resources, whether it's a director of human resource or an assistant super of human resources, whatever the title may be, I think it's very important that person be part of the superintendent's cabinet and given the lead to do that work. I'll start there. But giving input to what that process looks like, the hope is that the leadership is there to really bring some guidance there. But I think if we go to the school level, if I'll start there for hiring teachers, I think we should allow teachers to be hired by principals. I think it's very important to allow principals to lead. They know their schools better than any of us. So I think it's very important that principals given the flexibility to develop their committees at the school level. I think when it comes to assistant principals and principals, I'll start with assistant principals. I think the process of principals still being allowed to lead their buildings and know what leadership they need to support them, I think that's important as well. When we get into principals, hiring principals, hiring if it's directors at the central office level or if it's assistant superintendent, I think that process is where the superintendent does get more involved. I think for principals, I honestly think that's where the rubber hits the road. The processes that I have been involved with in the past is looking at a very representative committee of the community, school community. If we're hiring a high school principal, the school community includes staff, teachers, students, parents, to be involved in that process, maybe some representation from central office, to go through a process where they are reviewing applicants, to where they are reviewing applicants in a way to where they bring forward some to interview. And I think going through that process, one thing that I have found very beneficial throughout my career is also creating within the process either a writing sample or also a process to where we can even see potential candidates in action. I think those things are important. And I think it's important to charge that particular committee to move top candidates forward to the superintendent. So that gives a little structure.
Let me just, excuse me, mention just a follow-up on that. We have a number of different schools in our district. Would you encourage that there would be consistency in these groups that are set up for the interviewing throughout the entire system, or would you leave it just up to the principal to bring whoever he wants or her to the table to do the interviewing?
No, great question. I think it's important to have a baseline of what the expectation, what Human Resources Department outlines. I think it's important that there is consistency in process.
All right.
I think that's critical.
Thank you. Next question is in regards to the annual budget. Would you include the various stakeholders in preparation for that annual budget? And if so, who would you bring to the table?
Yeah, I think the budget process is a continuous process year-round. And I think you do have to include the various stakeholders. But I think you have to really define what that role is. The main stakeholders are our principals in that process, getting feedback from principals according to what their needs around resources to support teaching and learning at their school. We want to make sure principals have the resources so they can support teachers. So definitely principals And then at the school level, having teachers, department heads really work with the principal to offer recommendations. I think at the central office level, I think when we look at department heads from special education, when we look at ELL, content administrators, et cetera, based on the district's long-term vision and strategic plan, making sure that there's alignment there, and making sure that based on those goals and objectives that recommendations are made there. When I was in Stanford Public School as well as Marlboro, we also put out a survey to the community, getting their input on what they think some priorities around the budget process should be, things that they don't see within the district. I think it's always important to go through the process. You heard me talk about parent and community forums. We utilize parent and community forums for budget process, for the strategic planning process, for curricular development, informing the public, but also getting feedback. So I think you could include them in different ways.
Doctor, I think we only have about 1 more minute, and I wonder if you can give me a quick answer on this. If we run into a budget problem, which seems as though we have one each year, and if we have to cut, let's say, 1% from our budget, and our budget being somewhere in the vicinity of $160 million, where would you take a look at to cut first, and where would you cut last?
I will say where I will cut last is any impact to the classroom, the instructional core. We need teachers to teach kids. That would be, in my opinion, the last place I would want to cut. I think it's before not looking at your budget, it's hard to say where I would cut. I can go from experience, area that's always under budgeted because of lack of programming is out of district placements. It's hard to cut there because we have to meet the needs of the kids, but it would push me in the district to think about what's the long-term planning for building programs within the district to support teaching and learning.
Doctor, thank you for your answers.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, I'm next, Doctor. So welcome and nice to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to apply and participate in the process. Can I ask you what brings you to Lowell? What attracted you to Lowell Public School District?
Thank you for the question. The first thing, going through the town today, or city, come from Texas, I found out that there is a distinction. There's a great sense of pride here, and you feel it. You know, there's a lot of community that's Lowell proud, and you can really feel that in the schools. So that's one reason. I mentioned in my opening statement, I'm an urban kid. I've been out of the superintendency for going on 3 years, but the work with the Panasonic Foundation has been great because we're working with large school districts, coaching superintendents, coaching assistant supes, coaching principals, all around in urban districts, all around equity, and making sure that we are providing a pathway for all kids. So being in an urban setting, when I walked into the high school today, it was such a great feeling. You saw America, you saw the diversity, and that's what has attracted me. That's been my career, being in urban settings. That's where I feel the most comfortable. And the pride within the city and the strength of diversity, I think the opportunities are limitless.
Thank you, Doctor. And I agree. I think Lowell High School is America for sure. Can you just give me just a brief sort of synopsis of your experience as the senior program officer for high school reform in the Boston Public Schools, and what you did, what you learned, what you accomplished?
Oh, no, thank you for the question. My role there, I had the privilege of working with Tom Payzant before he retired as superintendent in Boston, and Tom Payzant spent 10 years there. During the end of his tenure, Dr. Payzant wanted to focus on high schools and really move it to the next level. It was also during the time where the Gates Foundation, they were really putting a lot of money toward small school development. So he created the Office of High School Reform. It was a very small office. We had a special assistant to the superintendent. We had myself, the program officer, and we also had a resident principal that was the founding principal of the Fenway High School. We were the team. Our charge was to think about the development not only of a long-term plan that could bring in Gates dollars to help develop small schools, but also to do professional development with the comprehensive high school principals. The success, we brought in $13 million from the Gates Foundation to develop small schools. We also spent a lot of time with principals, helping them reflect on their work. My learnings there was, a lot of times we go reach for grants, and I think we all are familiar with what the research says now on small schools. And it's really about instruction. It's really about good instruction. So a learning there is it was great to have the dollars to really supplement the budget, but it was more about instruction. It wasn't about how big or small we were. So that was very important. Also, the importance of how we collaborated with the union, because there was no way we were going to build small schools without having a partnership with them.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. That's pretty informational. So on the you spent a great deal of time in a classroom as a principal. How do you feel this is beneficial to you if you're selected as a superintendent of?
Could you repeat that?
I'm sorry. I'm stumbling on my words. You spent a great deal. You spent time in the classroom and as a principal, and you've also been a superintendent. How does your time in the classroom, and I'm more interested in your experience as a principal. How does that benefit you? What do you? How can you bring that experience to the Lowell Public Schools as a superintendent?
I think having experience in the cycle, teacher, assistant principal, I think that's where the action's at. I think that's where the real work takes place. I think coming into a superintendent position, understand what it means to teach a community of diverse learners. I think being a principal, understanding what it means to build culture within the school. I think the best way it helps me is understanding what principals may need, understanding the sensitivities that go with providing resources for teachers, understanding the struggles that principals may face. I think all those things, as superintendent, I think it's going to be very important that those relationships with principals are very solid. My research focused on high school principals and how that relationship with central office influences instructional leadership at the school level. So I think those experiences, understanding what it means to be a principal, help influences me on how to support them.
Okay, thank you. Sorry it took me a while to get the question out, but you hit the points that I was looking for. So, when districts go through a hiring process for a new superintendent, to me it serves as an opportunity for change, for new leadership, for new ideas, make things better, bring in some new, fresh ideas. What would you tell the teachers, the administrators, those individuals that, certainly they're committed, they spend a lot of time, they're involved, and what would you tell them? They're very passionate. What do you tell them as a new superintendent of schools?
I think the first thing that I tell them is that they change lives. I think I'm sitting here today because of a teacher. I think many of us are. I think sometimes what gets lost in the shuffle is giving teachers the credit they deserve and valuing that. My opening day as superintendent in Marlboro, that was my message: you change lives. And I think it's important to validate that, to recognize that, because they're on the front lines. Our principals are as well, but I think it's important to not only tell them that they change lives, but work with them, listen to them, collaborate with them, so they can be part of the process to continue doing the work that's necessary to raise student achievement. And that's how I believe you continue to try to professionalize teaching and allow teachers to be part of the solution.
Okay. Very good. Sometimes we hear people say that while all kids can learn, not all kids do learn. If it's a function of curriculum, teaching competence, teaching environment, something else, what would you do? What would you use either through curriculum or your teaching experience to ensure that all kids do learn?
I think when you hear those cliche phrases, and when you try to narrow down why kids aren't learning, I think we all educators, not just one classroom, I think we have to take a strong look at ourselves. Let's look at our curriculum. Is it high expectations for all? Let's not water it down, but do we have built into that curriculum safety net programs where kids can still get there? Have we put in enough programs that offer kids the supports that they may need in order to do the work? So I think that's important as well. I think professional development is huge. I don't know a teacher that, every teacher I know wants kids to learn, but sometimes we make the assumptions that they have everything that they need. We have to do a better job, I think, as educators, I'm saying in a global sense, to strengthen professional development programming, to understand what teachers need to get better, and provide that training for them.
Thank you. I just have one question. I only have 1 minute, and it's more of a I've asked this of all the candidates. I have found, in my experience as a city councilor, that contracts have not been beneficial to the city. And I know it's a standard in the field, but one thing that you did mention, Lowell, is full of pride. We're also, I find, we are always cutting edge. We like to lead. We like to try new things and be innovative. I think that's part of our heritage here, just from the birth of our city. So I'm not a big proponent of contracts. We do have ordinance that covers all of our department heads, including our city manager, our clerk, our city auditor, who is hired by the governing body. Would you require a contract?
For teachers?
No, for you as a superintendent.
For me, I think so, yes.
Okay. Do you have a contract right now with your current job?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair question. I appreciate it. Thank you. And that has, my time has expired, but thank you for your thorough answers on all my other questions. Mr. Gendron, right?
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Pope. Nice to see you again. It was very nice to chat with you a little bit at the reception earlier this evening. I like to step through the kind of chronology of the resume. So if we can briefly just do that, sometimes I can learn things about the transitions in somebody's career that is helpful. Of course, we chatted before, started in Texas, teaching world and Texas history.
Yeah.
Will Texas history become part of the curriculum here in Lowell?
I hope not.
And then I assume you left for Boston to pursue your education at Harvard. Is that what drove you to go to move to Boston?
Yes.
Okay. And all of these positions under the Harvard Graduate School of Education, like assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction and executive intern for the superintendent, and even Boston Public Schools, is that all part of your graduate school education?
That was part of my education. And I framed it that way simply because that was my job. For 8 years until I did my dissertation in 2006, my full-time job was a doctoral student. Okay. I was very fortunate, and thanks for bringing that up. I was very fortunate to work with people that were affiliated with the Harvard Network that afforded me the opportunities to work in the district and also use it as a data thought, if not the place where I collected data, to really inform my research. So I was often given time throughout that process to work on my dissertation. Providence Public Schools, sometime in Boston, Stanford Public Schools as well. So I was really afforded to get central office experience while also doing good work. Rochester was part of the curriculum where they send me off to Rochester, New York for 6 months It was an internship where it was on-the-job learning. I was on the superintendent cabinet. So I considered all of those learnings as part of that experience. And my wife had 3 children in the middle of all of that. So it was a great time of really being able to hone my skills as a leader.
Great. All right. Thank you. And then we talked about this briefly also. Briefly back to Texas once you achieved your doctorate, and your wife wasn't having any of that. So back to Boston you came, and you ended up in Weymouth. It says here that you were asked by the superintendent to do this 2-year commitment. What do you mean by that? What happened there?
It was a great opportunity. Once we figured out that Texas was not the place where we were going to raise our 3 boys, and we started heading back and started looking at jobs. Weymouth High School, at the time, was on probation from the NEASC. They had also came off of a year of work to rule. They had not met AYP since 2004. I was a finalist for their assistant superintendent position. Went back to Texas. I got a phone call. We know you didn't apply for this position. We know you're working at the central office level, but can you give us 2 years of focused leadership, a new mission to really move our district in the right direction? I fulfilled that commitment. It wasn't about position for me. At my age, it's about doing good work. So it was really, I felt honored that I was being asked to come in and do that work.
Great. So you completed your 2 years there, and you ended up superintendent of schools in Marlboro.
Yes.
And I need to ask you about this. We all received a letter from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees detailing some of the difficulties you had toward the end in Marlboro. I wonder if you want to just take a quick minute to, give your kind of perspective on that and what your feelings about it were.
Yeah, I'll give the brief perspective.
Please.
Sometimes in education, when I was a first-year teacher, you go into, it sounds very cliche-ish, you go in, I'm going to do everything for kids. I think all of us have had that energy when we go into education for the first time. But sometimes we're not faced with that question, really faced with that question. As superintendent, I was faced with that question. Am I really going to do everything that I'm supposed to do for children, to protect children, to make sure that's always my focus? And I learned a lot about myself because it was easy for me to answer that question. I try to operate from a moral sense of who I am, of what my values are, a high sense of integrity, and every single time I'm going to make the right decision for children, especially when it's about protecting them. That's what Marlboro was about. It was about making a decision that I thought was morally and ethically correct. It was an HR situation that I could not talk about publicly, so I didn't. I respect the HR process, and the only recourse was to launch a negative character assassination of my character through the press, and a lot of things that were really ridiculous. So if you ask me, would I do it again? Would I make the same decision? Yes, no doubt about it.
Thank you for your candor, sir. A couple of other questions I had. We talked briefly about a situation you had in Marlboro where you, when you first went in, you moved the 8th grade from the high school down to the middle school, and then the 4th grade from the middle school down to the elementary school. And I find that particularly interesting because we're in a situation here in Lowell where, as you may know, we're looking at a potential big high school project. And we also have a shortage in middle schools. So there's been some talk about possibly moving the 8th grade to be associated with the high school maybe in a separate building, perhaps even in that freshman academy building that you talked about the other day. I'm wondering so we're kind of doing the opposite potentially of what you did. I'm wondering if there's some reason why you did that, some educational reason why you did that we should consider before making a move like that.
I think when we talk about developmentally, when you look at the middle school research and we talk about ACT did a great study on the correlation to college success in the middle school. there's more of a correlation to how a kid does in middle school correlated to how they will do in college. The middle school is critical to education, and when everything is context specific. In Marlboro at the time, there was also not just my decision. We brought in the research, but we also listened to the community. And when I walked through the high school and I saw 8th graders that were so tall, and then you see the really big kids, it was easy to really think about what parents were saying. And it was a 7-0 vote. The community got behind it tremendously. It was supposed to be, 10 years prior, a temporary fix. So we moved forward with it. We reevaluated the space and started to try to develop a real middle school. And we even brought back middle school sports. So it was more developmentally. I have a 12-year-old getting ready to go to the 7th grade. I can't even imagine him in high school.
Right. Great, thank you. Quickly, I notice also here in Marlboro, you talked about a new delivery model for professional development of teachers that seemed to be quite successful. What was that all about? How did you do that?
In Marlboro, I mentioned that we outlined a 5-year strategic plan. There was no direction that were aligned to district goals. First thing we had to do was really align our priorities. There was also no consistency through departments, if it was special education, if it was ELL, if it was a math department, et cetera. We also tried to bring in an embedded model of professional development where we looked at the expertise that existed within the district to provide professional development back to teachers, giving professional development to teachers. Mm-hmm. So what we did when we had our professional development days, we started a process that was eventually leading to almost like a catalog model, but it was consistency. If it was, for example, if it was paraprofessionals that were focused on emotionally disturbed students, we made sure elementary through high school that there was some consistency around what was needed to help them hone their craft. Same thing with special education teachers, math teachers, what was the focus? That didn't exist. So that was the beginning of a new model of professional development for Marlboro.
Great. I just have a minute left, but I would like to ask this question about the community. How important do you think it is for a superintendent of schools to be closely aligned with, business organizations, community groups, and just the people in the community? Is that important? And if so, how would you do it here in Lowell? I assume that you're not probably looking to move to Lowell. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but how would you go about aligning yourself with the community as a superintendent?
I think it's critical. I would hope to become a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I was in my last role as superintendent. Visibility is going to be the key. I think we talked about, you mentioned the question on partnerships. What businesses are doing business here in Lowell? How do we approach them, looking at what are the pathways for our students and how can students be aligned to those pathways into some of those professions? I think it's critical that you establish those relationships up front because when kids get to 12th grade, if they need to do a model or an internship, that's one way to really connect businesses with schools. So I think what you'll see from me as superintendent is being very involved no matter where I stay. I think it's a 7-day-a-week job, and it's something that you never let up on.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate your answers.
Dr. Pope, thank you very much for being here tonight, and thank you for applying. One thing tonight you mentioned was something called Read 180. It has massive success here in Lowell, and I appreciate that you have used that as well. A lot of people think that's an old tool used, and a lot of people didn't want to use it here. And a colleague of mine, John Leahy, actually fought to bring it in and had really good success. What I asked everybody, I guess, basically, because I think it's nice to talk about project learning and curriculum and all this fun stuff in the vernacular of education speak. How you are going to implement it is more important. Mm-hmm. And the question is, the folks that are going to implement it in a large district are your principals for the most part. What do you see as a manager and leadership role? What kind of skill sets do you look for in that process to deliver the actual implementation of your goals?
No, thank you for the question. I think it does come down to implementation. I think when we look at leadership at the school level, it's one thing for us to sit at the high level and say, let's implement this, but if we don't have the leadership at the school level, it's going nowhere. I think it's important that you heard me talk about empowerment. You heard me talk about making sure that not only teachers but principals are part of the process. I think implementation, a big part of it is buy-in. Buy-in meaning I participated in and I contribute to the solution. I think that's huge. I think looking at leadership, if we're talking about instructional changes, I think you have to create structures where principals and teachers are involved in the creation of. And I think my role as leaders is to help facilitate that process, but also my role as leaders, I believe that I need to meet with principals monthly or twice a month or whatever it takes. But I also need to serve as a mentor, a resource, someone that can go to their school when they need support and tell them to put me to work. I think that's important, not in a micromanaging fashion, but I think my role is to also mentor that leadership as well. So I think in making sure that we are holding everyone accountable to the benchmarks that we set in our long-term strategic planning. I think setting a consistent mission and vision and benchmarking those goals is critical when we talk about strategic planning. And I think if we do that collaboratively with principals and teachers, it has a better chance of moving forward because they participated. I think you run into the issues when people don't feel part of the process. When they feel, well, that's the first time I've seen it. It shouldn't be that way because we're all in this together. But I think the leadership that I look for organization, I look for passion, really believe in what they're doing. I saw that today from principals, people really caring about children, really caring about the work that they're doing, and very knowledgeable about teaching and learning. I think, and knowing their staff. That's what you heard me say earlier. I don't want to micromanage principals. I want to allow them to lead their buildings because they're going to know their teachers. They're going to know their kids better than anybody else on the outside, of course. Well, not better than parents, but you understand what I'm saying. I think it requires all those things.
It's another, when you come to an organization like any size of our mid-sized city, you have a big infrastructure, central office. And one of the issues that we struggle with, sometimes we do well, sometimes we don't, is how do you ensure that they're actually helping the schools as opposed to having their own political dynamic? What steps would you take in terms of making sure that they are a supportive roles and helping the schools be successful?
Yeah. I'm smiling because that was part of my literature for my research. And one thing the literature found that central office often gets in the way. So it was interesting when I was going through the dissertation process. But I think the way I view central office is not getting in the way, but the question is how does central office serve as a resource to schools? And I think that needs to be the role. We always talk top down, but I believe in bottom up. I believe in that we have to come to the table together. And I think that only solutions are going to get solved at the school level if we're including teachers and principals. So I see central office as a resource, working with principals and teachers on a continuous basis. And I think it's up to central office to have the knowledge and skills needed to lead special education, lead math department, reading department. But we also have to have the skills to make sure that we're working hand in hand with principals and teachers to understand what their needs are. What are the resources that they need to do teaching and learning? What are the areas that we need professional development in to get better? We need to be good listeners, and I think that's something that we all can get better at.
Just to get into a nuts and bolts, it's not a very fun topic, but what would you do if you had a direct report, a principal in a school that was underperforming? How would you work with that individual to help them improve? And would you set timelines or guides if it didn't work? And how would you approach that?
No, I think I totally believe in due process. If it's a principle where there is potential to get better, I think you outline goals and objectives and benchmarks along the way. You spend the time to work with them as superintendent. Sometimes you're not always going to have 100% of the time, but you have to give them some time. But you also tap into other leadership within the district, just like we do with students. Sometimes pure learning is the best way to go. How do we bring in other principals that have been seen as master principals to also serve as models? I worked in principals in Providence Public Schools when I was executive director for high schools. We sometimes would take a principal and let them go visit a strong principal and spend a day with them. So there's different things you can do where we can model, provide professional development, but the most important is to set an improvement plan to make sure that they are improving and what those benchmarks are, and outline and give feedback. If you get along the line and that you've done everything, and if there's kid safety is not happening, student achievement is not moving along, and if you have exhausted all possibilities, I think you have to look at a true sense, what is best for children, and make decisions what's best for kids.
I just want to thank you very much for the thoughtful answers tonight, and thank you for applying. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Pope, that concludes the question and answer section of the interview. We'd now like to invite you to a closing statement, if you would so wish.
Thank you. I was ready for another round. I was just getting warmed up. No, really, thank you all. It's such an important decision. The work that I'm doing with Panasonic, we were just in Orlando last week. We had San Diego Unified, Oakland Unified, big districts. And it was the conversation around, does all really mean all for all kids? And spending a day here today connects to that, and seeing the diversity, seeing the pride. I would love being part of this. As I mentioned earlier, a mom that raised six of us by herself. My mom was the only one out of 7 brothers and 1 sister that knew how to read. And I'm the only college graduate in my family of 6. I understand what it means to be an urban kid, where your narrative is not always set for you, where expectations are diluted. And I'm not saying that is happening here or always happening in every setting, but I understand urban education. That is a strength that I can bring to Lowell Public Schools. And I'm excited about the opportunities and the possibilities. I also think that, a great educator from Harvard University, Ron Edmonds, once said, we have every single thing we need in public education. We have everything. But it's not an achievement gap. Sometimes it's a will gap. And sometimes, Ron Edmonds challenges us, do we have the will to do everything that we need to do in public education? One thing that I feel like I've demonstrated throughout my career is having the will to make the tough decisions when needed. And one thing that I can guarantee all of you, if chosen to be your next leader, at the center of every conversation will be children. Children and decisions based on children first, nothing else. And I welcome the opportunity to be your next superintendent. So thank you for the opportunity tonight.
Well, that concludes our interviews. Thank you, Dr. Pope. Tomorrow, just by way of process, tomorrow we have a scheduled meeting for 6 p.m. here, and the purpose of that will be to conduct the vote for the next superintendent. Thoughts, questions? No? Entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilor Jenner, seconded by Councilor Mr. Jenner, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, the motion carries. This meeting stand adjourned.